Thank you, Richard. I'll keep to the traffic light system. Good morning, everyone. Dankie, Richard, vir die bekendstelling en die geleentheid. Die vrugte is 3 weke vroeër hierdie jaar. Dit is die tipe braaivleis stories wat ons in die seisoen vir mekaar vertel. Dis ook die hipotese wat ons vandag 'n bietjie gaan ondersoek en analiseer. Dit is 'n menslike ding om te vergelyk en te wil inpas, en ons wil graag weet hoe vergelyk laas seisoen met hierdie seisoen en waar ons vrugte inpas. Ek sê altyd die kortste ding in die hele wêreld is 'n boer se geheue, maar dit geld maar vir ons almal in die hitte van die oomblik. Richard asked me to give comment and feedback and a brief insight on the observations of the past season, specifically with regards to pome fruit. Well, to do this, we'll unpack the season very briefly, starting with tree rest from last year, analyzing cold units, then onto the heat units and growing degree days, followed by rainfall figures. We'll then briefly discuss the maturity indicators for specific cultivars and conclude with observations we witnessed. We use Infratect units to evaluate the cold, seeing that Infratect is a measurement quantifying the quality of rest, and Richardson is an indication of quantity of rest. The cold temperatures, like this year, started quite early, and some producers started measuring in April already. Cold units for the Ceres area were less last year, but more interesting is the flat spots that you can see in the middle of the curve. That indicates that we experienced some mild cold days in the winter of 2022. The dormant state of the trees was interrupted by warmer temperatures. Looking at the Grabouw area, cold units were pretty much on par with previous seasons, slightly less than 2021, but the same observations can be seen, the flat spots in the center of the curve where, again, the dormant state of the trees were interrupted by warmer temperatures. Heat units for the Warmbokkenveld area was measured from September to December, and the heat units accumulated in Ceres ramped up quickly around 40 days after full bloom and steadily accumulated up to 80 days after full bloom, creating an interesting dilemma in cell division and cell multiplication was quite rapid in this period. Heat units for Grabouw, we see the same trend here, the same step up could be seen in Grabouw with a steady accumulation of heat units with very little or no stress days that led us to investigate the growing degree days in Ceres and Elgin. So for Ceres, growing degree days from 40 days after full bloom to 80 days after full bloom accumulated quickly. So that indicated there was no stress during the growing season. The same can be seen in Grabouw. Growing degrees steadily accumulated from 40 days after full bloom to 80 days after full bloom, and this is in the crucial developmental part of the fruit. So fruit stress is a big factor to consider. If all goes well in the growing period and the fruit experiences little to no stress, it's not as resilient as other seasons. So we experienced this phenomenon in 2023. Looking at the rainfall and the stormy conditions of December, where we had that big hail, and especially in Ceres, I think this is the first time that Ceres had a higher rainfall figure than Grabouw, because Ceres recorded 105 millimeters of rain and Grabouw 90 millimeters. The amount of rainfall coupled with thunder and lightning, if you remember correctly, increased the amount of nitrogen released into the atmosphere. We think that the nitrogen stimulated the fruit cell growth, not necessarily creating better size, but added more cells within the fruit at the crucial growing stage. So the influence of summer storms had a big impact on the fruit. Because we had such a relaxed growing season with little to no stress on the fruit, the thinner cell walls and physically less cells in the fruit created a scenario where fruit firmness measured quite low off the bat in the start of the season. So for the next few slides, we'll be looking at maturity trends and especially fruit firmness. And we picked out we focused on early BCs and Packhams for the pears. So for the early born Grecians from Ceres, it shows an accelerated fruit drop in firmness for the 23 season compared to the 2018 season. The initial samples from week 1 also showed a lower starting point on average. This, coupled with good sugar content and fruit color, indicated the season was indeed quite early, because some growers were still having a little New Year's break at the beach, and this was already occurring in week 1. So for the Packham triumph in Ceres, we see the fruit firmness was nothing out of the ordinary, and the fruit firmness loss week to week was 0.4 to 0.2 kilograms per week, which was in fact quite slow. But the fruit was already at 8 kilograms of fruit firmness at 180 days after full bloom. Meant that harvesting commenced a little bit earlier. Early born Grecian from Grabouw. These graphs are a bit different, so just bear with me. But we added, so if you see, we started sampling a little bit earlier. So we had fruit at 93 days after full bloom. Then we had a dramatic drop in fruit firmness. This can be contributed to sample volumes as more people started coming back and realizing that we have very low firmness in the first 3 weeks of the season. So I believe the second red bar is a better representation of what was going on in the season because of the bigger sample volume. The fruit firmness dropped quite significantly week on week, and by week 3 there were no more early BCs to be sampled, which was the first time that I've seen this in many years. So for the apples, we focused on the most famous cultivars in South Africa, because if I can stand here for a very long time too. So we focused on Golden Delicious, and once again, the firmness in Ceres started just over 9 kilogram with an optimum target firmness of 8 kilograms. And we saw 8 kilograms at 101 days after full bloom already. And in week 5, we were quite worried about the initial low firmness, but the drop in firmness declined steadily. The Golden Delicious did very well to maintain firmness at around 7.6 kilogram, which is not ideal for intake, but that's what we had to work with. I also think the fruit firmness, especially on Golden Delicious, were influenced by Retain and our Vista applications. We were aware of the starch conversion that hanged a bit back compared to the firmness, but at that stage we already received some of the communication from the Royal Gala dispensation, so we were aware that we had to be on the lookout for that. If one considers the only starch conversion from Ceres area, the pre-optimum harvest date started at 122 days, where the average growing period for Golden Delicious is normally 136 days. The green bar clearly shows that the higher than normal starch conversion, which is in this graph, apologies. So you can see at 136 days after full bloom, the starch conversion was already past 20%. there's the Golden Delicious starch conversion from Ceres. So in Grabouw, we saw the same phenomenon. Fruit firmness on Golden Delicious started at a record low and dropped consistently week on week, average fruit firmness of 7.8 kilograms and 8% starch conversion was already at 123 days after full bloom. So that's what I was going to highlight with this graph. The positive was that the same rate of change could be observed, and the starch conversion normally doubles week on week. Acids in general were low throughout the season, with good sugar content throughout all cultivars. So just to start to conclude, how late was the season or how early was the season? So for early BCs in Ceres, it was very early. It was 17 days early. And that kind of scared everyone. So in Grabouw, we saw 9 days earlier. On the Packhams, Ceres were 13 days earlier. And in Grabouw, 9 days earlier. So Golden Delicious in Ceres, 9 days earlier as well. And Golden Delicious in Grabouw was also 9 days earlier. So yes, we did indeed have an early season, but it was not 3 weeks early as initially thought. Throughout the investigation, the importance of sampling early and with good repetition was evident. Weather clearly played a vital role in fruit maturity this year, and lower fruit firmness was quite a scare, but we think we can contribute that to the mild growing season, the fruit that didn't stress enough. We will see in the next few months what the storage potential would be. I can't comment on that, but I believe there's enough people here that can. So yes, that was this presentation. So thank you for your time.